Hi everyone again, and welcome to the Superhero Podcast. And we have a fantastic treat for the show this week. Now, as I spoke to Joel Daly a few weeks ago from the Comic Book Cast, this week I'm speaking to the head honcho from the Comic Book Cast. He loves comics, and so welcome Armin to the show. So, hello, how are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing just fine. I just saw The Winter Soldier, so I'm on like the ultimate high horse.
I know, I just literally, I myself got back from going to see it again, so
Oh,
I luckily got to go and watch it on the opening midnight preview back in about a week ago, yeah.
see, it just opened 12 hours ago here, so.
I mean, alright, so my first kind of general point is, I know you're a massive Aquaman fan.
Yeah.
I mean, I got sort of that vibe from when I was speaking to Joel as well. So, kind of my question is, why is it that you like him so much?
Funny thing is, I was actually one of those guys that hated Aquaman, bashed him, just completely hated everything about the character. And then like 2002 came around, and doing all the bashing, Family Guy was bashing. I was like, you know what? Before I bash this guy, I'm gonna go out and just pick up some Aquaman comics for the first time in my life. So I went up, picked up like 20 Aquaman comics with some, money I had, and really just sat down and started reading them. And the character just kind of like unfolded in front of me. He's this outsider that's, not really accepted by his own Atlantean people, not really accepted by the surface people. And then the story just kind of unfolded. It was like this adventure of under the seas and, all this aquamarine life that you really don't know what can exist, because we haven't discovered even a fraction of our oceans.
Yeah, yeah.
And, growing up, my father always used to tell me stories about like Atlantis and stuff. And I went to school for history anyway. So all this kind of melded, and automatically, like, this character just clicked with me. I was like, holy shit, if it's converted me and I like it so much, what else am I missing that, I've been bashing? So that kind of really started my whole trek into more comics discovery, and Aquaman automatically just jumped to my favorite superhero. So
I tried to catch up on the Jeff Johns run on the series, and I admit my earlier thoughts on the character, yeah, I did kind of get caught up in the jokes and everything. I kind of didn't respect him as much as probably as people should. And honestly, the first kind of time I actually saw the character was like back in the old animated Justice League show. And he was pretty badass in that. And then that kind of died away, and then I kind of lost interest in the character again. And then the jokes came, and then all the bashing came. And then I read the first issue of the New 52 Aquaman. And actually, no, I read in the Flashpoint, his and Wonder Woman's series in Flashpoint, and my god, that was some really, really good stuff. And I hoped they wanted to like bring that over into the New 52, which they did, thankfully.
Yeah, I think the New 52 honestly is given a new, light on Aquaman. I mean, to me, I went back and, I rebought almost entire. I have every run since I think 88. Like, I've completed the set. Like, I love the character, and going back, and he's had a lot of good moments, but unfortunately, at the time that this was coming out, like, anytime they try to push him, even with a good run, like, there was a great run from 2001 to like 2005-ish.
Yeah.
It was buried because at the time, Mad and like, Family Guy is just constantly bashing the character. I just never think he got that chance he really deserved, which is unfortunate since there's a lot of good stuff in there that you can explore and do. And I mean, he's so good right now. He has his own team right now. Aquaman and the others just launched, so they're pretty impressive.
I went into my local comic store literally earlier today, and that was one of the first issues on the top shelf. And I was tempted to pick it up, but I just didn't have the time to get and properly go in and explore it. But let's say, obviously, he has his own series now. So, what are your hopes for the future of the character and how he's going to develop into the future?
I want more, I mean, they're already slowly starting to do what the old Aquaman comics were, which is more, adventure type of deals and more going into the mythology. And I think that's really what I want more out of it. I want to see how they handle that in the New 52. Like, spoilers, I guess, in case some people haven't read it, but, Hercules shows up in the newest issue, and, like, I want to see how that they're going to tie the mythology of Hercules with the Atlanteans, and Aquaman and the others now is dealing with the first king of Atlantis, which we already saw. He was like this frozen menace that really hated Arthur and his family because he was betrayed by them. So I just like how they're really linking everything together, and being such a huge history buff, I'm just like, give me more of that. He doesn't need to be doing all the stuff on the surface, which Jeff Johns obviously had to do first to bring people that don't understand the world of Aquaman into it, and they're slowly transitioning into this whole, here's, what Aquaman really is. It's crazy adventures under the sea and mermaids and crap,
I mean, you have to bring in like a certain humanity to the character, otherwise you create that kind of an image that he was in the Justice League cartoon. He was a bit resentful, and he was a bit like people. I think that kind of pushed people away from him, and now, obviously, showing that he has a good relationship with people on the surface world, as well as his world in Atlantis, and it shows that it has a certain a familiarity with people, like new readers, if you would.
Right, exactly. And I think that's what I want more. Just keep it grounded, but keep the excitement that, that older fans of Aquaman have really gripped onto, which is adventure and mystery and, all this cool stuff that is there.
Obviously, the relaunch, the reboot, everything got kind of screwed up again. Everyone got rebooted. Like, I spoke to Joel, and he said that basically everything but the Green Lantern books have kind of changed, and everything's been rewritten and things like that. But like the one hero who's the one character in like obviously the New 52 is pretty huge, but who's the one that you think's got kind of screwed over since the reboot?
Man, going at him, I want to say, I think Blue Beetle and Booster Gold have really gotten the shaft. I mean, before this 52 started, there was an old 52. Like, there was an actual comic every week for 52 weeks. And they pushed Booster Gold to literally the forefront of DC. Like, they really made him this huge character who everybody loved, and Booster Gold really got a push. And with that, Blue Beetle got a huge push because, they're like best friends and everything.
Yeah.
New 52 starts. Booster Gold's been seen in a handful of issues. He was kind of thrown on some teams. They completely buried the character. And Blue Beetle, I don't even know where he is anymore. Like, I go look at it, I'm like, what is he doing? And I think that's one of my few things. I thought they were doing so good with them, and then whoever the hell decided, yeah, let's just bury these two characters who just had 5 great years of built up. I wish they would bring them back, in some way, or like to what they were before.
When it was coming to an end, when everyone was like, it was starting to go into Flashpoint, like Brightest Day and like Blackest Night had just finished, and the Birds of Prey, their issues were very, very good. Like, and it was one of my favorite books. And
yeah, I was reading Birds of Prey. I'll agree with you. I thought that was pretty good.
It's not working like it should compared to what it was before.
See, that's how I feel like. Despite me, I love the new Batgirl series that's been going.
I love that series as well.
But I also loved Stephanie Brown's Batgirl. I was a huge fan, and the side I came from that is, before the New 52 started, they kind of went with this whole everybody has to be depressed in the New 52. Everybody has to be more like this. Everything has to be darker and gloomier. And you go back and read those Stephanie Brown run, she was a fun character. And the moment I keep going back to is there's a great conversation between her and Damian Wayne, where Damian is just so hard edge and he's such, differently raised child. And she takes him out for a night of patrol, but it's them having fun. And at the end, he sees a trampoline. He's like, that's stupid. And she gets on it, and she just starts jumping and says, come jump on it. And he gets on, and he starts jumping on a trampoline, and he's a kid. And he has this moment of, he's living a kid, and she gave him that moment. And that moment, to me, sums up the whole series. It's just fun. And I miss that from the old, comics before the New 52. There was a lot of fun to be had, which they kind of got rid of, and it disappoints me on a personal level because, hey, I like fun in my comics, so, and that's what happened with a lot of shifts over. Everything just kind of got darker, so I'm like, I wish they would just go back to a little more fun, which subsequently Marvel now is trying to do, so.
Exactly. I first met Stephanie Brown, honestly, when I was reading the Cassandra Cain run on Batgirl.
Oh, yep.
And, honestly, she's my favorite. Like, Cain's my favorite, and it's just for a variety of reasons, because the artwork was really fun and like interesting, and the stories were well written and everything. And then obviously her character got kind of diminished towards the end.
Oh, of course.
But then when I read, there was the Gang War. I can't remember what it was called, but it was the Gang War of Black Mask, and then that was when Stephanie Brown supposedly died. That was when I kind of got really more interested within the dynamic of the character. I mean, spoiler, she was there, but she was a friend of Cassandra, and that was it. And then when you get to the Stephanie Brown Batgirl series, you have fun with her. I mean, Cain was dark, like dark, adventurous, and a bit of a thriller as well. It was a brutal book sometimes, and then you get to Stephanie Brown, and she's having fun. Like I remember this one page where she actually goes to Livewire and tries to take her down, and Livewire goes, "You do know I fight Superman, don't you?" And she's like, "Yeah."
Yeah.
That was like one of the moments I really fell in love with the character. I mean, Damian again is one of the characters I fell in love with as well. I mean, I first read him in the Batman and Son, like the very first appearance of him, and like at the first he was a douchebag, just because of the way he was raised.
Yep.
But then as the character progressed, you get to know the character, you understand the character, and then, like you said, like you see him evolve into a more likable person until he kind of got killed off.
Yeah.
What do you think cost the old universe from the New 52? What do you think was lost from it? Do you think it's the fun?
It's the fun. I mean, I have fun reading the new comics. Like, there is fun moments, but everything just feels darker and gloomier. It's almost like when the New 52 was redesigned, they were like, okay, well, we have to be more dark because the Dark Knight movies, were dark, and that's what kids like. Yeah. When in turn, the people that are watching these movies, they're not the same guys buying your books. A small percentage is, and I think they were adhering to the wrong people, which really kind of, just kind of rubbed me the wrong way. You should really focus on what the fans want of the comics, and there was an interview where Dan DiDio was talking about what the DC comics were, going to be and stuff. And he said, we have to have a lot less fun. It has to be darker. And I'm just like, no, you're missing the point here. This is comics. We don't want it to reflect our world. We read these things to escape our world and go to a different place, right? And if you're constantly mentioning kind of the same things that's happening in our world in your comics, it's just hitting closer to home, which I don't want. Which is a reason I gravitate towards Aquaman. I can never be at the bottom of the ocean fighting a shark, but he can, so I'm going to read Aquaman, so...
I mean, I caught on late onto a series, like the Batwoman. She, like, that series, in the old 52, I mean, the old continuity or whatever, she, like, the first book that I read was Batwoman, not Eternal, I can't remember the title, but I'm going to kick myself for not knowing it, but it was one of those books where it introduced you to the character. It didn't expect you to know the backstory, but it showed that it was a likable character. It was an interesting dark story, and then in the New 52, they gravitated that onward. They brought it forwards, which was good. They kept the same writing team on it. They kept the same artists on it. It all fitted together, and that was the one issue that I generally loved reading, because it wasn't so dark all the time. Because you had the fun, nice moments between Kate and her girlfriend Maggie, and then you get the dark and adventurous moments between Batwoman and the DEO or whatever, and then unfortunately we have the issue of after issue 24 where they actually left, which was again Mr. DiDio's handiwork. Honestly, that was one of the genuine moments I was generally pissed off, because it was the fact that they handled it so poorly, I reckon. The fact that they didn't try to say, oh no, we're not homophobic. We just don't want them to have happy personal lives.
Oh.
I mean, that was the one I was like saying, are you actually listening to what you're saying? You actually sound idiotic.
Yeah, me and Joel had that discussion multiple times off of non-recorded, and just me and him going, what the hell are they doing over there? Like, who is actually saying these things? Like, it just sounds ridiculous.
I mean, when you read his Twitter, he doesn't actually sound that. He sounds like a nice guy. He sounds like an interesting guy. And then when you see him release these stupid press release, stupid comments at Comic-Cons or anything, he just sounds like ridiculous. It sounds like someone's literally just written it down and say, here you go, say this and make yourself look like an idiot.
Right. I think I actually come off that same way, which I don't know why. When I like to give my quick, brief, synopsis of something, especially if it's DC media related, I'll kind of come off as, I just don't care about these guys, when in reality, I love DC Comics. I have a whole Aquaman shrine up on my wall. I mean, I have a ton of Batman things, Superman in a bunch of places, Green Lantern all over. I mean, I have over 800 Green Lantern comics.
Bloody hell.
So when people say you don't love DC, I'm like, dude, I have more DC stuff than actual Marvel comics. So, but you know, I think it's just, I don't know. It's like they throw the deal out there. They're just like, say something stupid so we can put you on that website. Or how long has it been since DC did something dumb, you know?
Yeah.
They have a clock going.
Yeah, I mean, they do some dumb moments, but there is light at the end of the tunnel, which is the new Batman. Obviously, a lot of Batman stuff is basically revolves around DC nowadays, but the Batman Eternal series, where we get the return of Stephanie Brown, and we also get Bluebird, which is Batman's new partner, which I am extremely excited about. What are your feelings about that?
Same with everything. I'm optimistic till I read the first thing.
Yeah.
I've learned early on that I'm not gonna judge. Unless it comes to Fox and Quicksilver and what Bryan Singer does with those movies. Other than that, I'm not gonna judge.
We'll get to that later, trust me.
Yeah, I won't judge it until I see that. So, but I'm very excited to read that. I mean, anything that changes up the status quo, I'm all excited for. So I can't wait to read it.
I mean, it's refreshing to actually get like another female psychic without having to go for Batgirl again. It just seems like a positive step forward in the way, which is a good move. And then obviously we're getting the reintroduction of Spoiler, which is obviously Stephanie Brown, which I know you would love to see her in the Batgirl costume, but that's where she started, and she'll probably end up there eventually, but still.
Right, eventually.
Well, getting away from the dark and depressing world of DC, we enter the bright and happy land of Marvel Comics. I know you and Joel, you review the Superior Spider-Man run, and you guys were actually, when you reviewed after issue 8, I actually caught onto the series, and I caught up, and then I followed it week by week as it came out. And when it's actually coming to an end now, which is actually a shame.
Oh yeah.
What are your feelings on the fact that? What was your feelings on the entire series as a whole?
Well, I mean, I made this video, which I'm waiting to upload at some point. It's called Superior Reflection, where I go back and I look at the comments of my first 5 reviews, which I was doing solo at the time.
Yeah.
And how I was giving it impressive scores and telling people what this is and what it's going to be and why we should give this a chance.
Yeah.
And everybody in the comments literally calling me the worst things you can imagine.
I can imagine.
Like, I had my inbox, actually, I saved a few people threatening to kill me. It was pretty out there because I like the series. And then I reflected on the current last issue, or pre-last issue, which is issue 30. Those same people agreeing with me that this is one of the best runs that Spider-Man has ever had.
Oh, for sure.
And, you know, I came from the point of, guys, this isn't Peter Parker, but this is going to affect him because for the first time ever, not only is he going to keep his memory, he is going to see what turned Doc Ock into the man he is. And the parallels they draw between the two universes of Peter and him were the same. Just one had a terrible upbringing, didn't have Uncle Ben to be there to tell him great power, great responsibility. He had abuse. And, you know, it's going to put things into perspective in Peter's mind. What if I didn't have Uncle Ben?
Yeah.
How bad could I have turned out? And we see that now. And when you look at this run and what it's going to do for the future of Spider-Man, you can't help but be like, Dan Slott is a genius. And I'm blown away. Like, when the omnibus comes out, I'm going to buy that thing and read it in one sitting and truly enjoy seeing 2 characters actually evolve to something more than just, oh, let's just retcon this because it didn't work. Because,
the traditional status quo.
Right. Oh, we got to go back to Peter and MJ and all this. And, you know, I'm just bored of that. And I really hope that people just give this a chance because it's worth reading. It's one of the best runs you'll read in the last couple years. When you reflect back and read the title again, Superior Spider-Man, Doc Ock, it's not the point that he's a superior Spider-Man. It's always been Peter. He just never knew what would make him superior. And now that he's been inside the mind of his villain and vice versa, that he's seen what good can be caused by just being a better person, maybe taking an extra step towards being a little more hard, he's going to learn a different lesson. And I think, honestly, that it's going to change Peter Parker and Spider-Man run for a long time. And I personally can't wait because, I mean, I loved Spider-Man.
Me too.
Right, like, one of my favorite superheroes ever, and I just loved the fact that it's going to change. And the last, 100 issues of Amazing Spider-Man, we're kind of getting a little stale. I'm not going to
Yeah.
lie. It
Yeah, I
got
mean,
repetitive, it got mundane, and this is going to change everything. So I welcome it.
obviously, like you said, Spider-Man's one of your favorite heroes. I mean, I grew up with him. I mean, he was the first comic that I got. I mean, I played him on the PlayStation, and I watched the films, and then yeah, the later films have come along, and we'll talk about those later. But obviously, right now, the biggest thing that's going to happen this year, or supposedly next year, is the Spider-Verse.
Yeah.
Now, I know that you're excited for it, and I mean, I'm very excited about it. The one who's the one Spider-Man out of all of them that you think is going to be interesting to actually catch up on? Do you reckon?
Uh, Out of a personal standpoint, just because it's one of my favorite offshoot series, I want to catch up with Spider-Man 1602.
Mm-hmm.
Just because, once again, it's history and it's how they alter, and I love that series for how it did that whole historical thing. Like, Steve Rogers was Captain Rogers, Native American. I just love seeing that whole. I want to see him return, but also Spider-Man Noir. Like,
Yeah.
I love Spider-Man Noir. That's such a cool series, and it's such a different Spider-Man that I want to see how that's going to work with with what's happened now. And I
Yeah.
just want to see what his reaction is going to be, being like, "Wow, I am so different than all these other guys," and Spider-Ham, and Ultimate Spider-Man cartoon, who's turning into a piece of toast because stupid reasons.
Joy.
Yeah. Before I see or think about how big the consequences are, I don't know how big the reaching effects of this series are going to be, because I remember DC just recently they hyped up, oh, Batman Gothopia is happening. It's this huge thing. It was like 4 issues and like half another issue and done. I was like, so that was it?
It went out like a light, really.
Right. I'm hoping that's not the same effect. You're like, oh, Spider-Verse, December, January, done. And I'm like, wait, what? So I want them to really make this, if it's going to be big, like a Spider-Girl, a Spider-Woman, Miles Morales, I want them each to have a tie-in to maybe explore what those characters think, interacting with all these other versions of themselves. Because honestly, I think, the moment in comics that I like most is when characters sit down and talk and have a heart-to-heart. So I would love to see maybe, famously, I think, Ultimate Spider-Man 2 with Miles Morales.
Yeah.
The whole issue is pretty much him and his dad talking in a park and talking about this emotional moment and what's coming and what's kind of foreshadowing the future. And that issue is so good, and not one panel of anything action-oriented happened. And I would love if we could just get that from hell. Give me 30 issues of different Spider-Mans, seeing how they reconcile with everything that's happening and how their universe is going to change, because I think that would just be the most interesting thing that could possibly come out of it.
I mean, obviously, there are going to be some comedy issues in there. Like, you got the Amazing Bagman and you got Spider-Ham.
Yeah.
I mean, but then you've also got this the more serious one, which is it's not LA Noir, Spider-Man Noir, and you've also got like Captain Universe Spider-Man as well. I mean, hell, this series could like change a lot of things. But obviously, there's one aspect of the series that I think you may enjoy. Like, obviously, you may get Ben Reilly coming back again, and obviously with him you may get the Jackal coming back, because I know from a chat with one of your colleagues that you love the Jackal.
Oh, the Jackal, I tell you. He's like the comic version of Bryan Singer to me. Like, every time I'm getting super excited for something, they're like, oh, you like the Jackal? I'm like, no. And I mean, don't get me wrong, I don't mind the Clone Saga. I don't mind the Jackal himself.
Yeah.
I just hate how whenever he shows up, it's a plot device to say, hey, we have a clone coming up, and we're going to play around with that. And I'm just like, can we forget the Clone Saga? Like, it was supposed to be a mini-series, and it sold so well that they're like, well, can we drag this on for another year?
And it went forever.
And it literally, I remember at that time, that's when I was first, I moved to the United States, so I started looking at the comics. I was like, what is this? Like, and of course, I was a 90s kid, so I was like, growing up semi in the 90s, being like 10 or whatever, I'm like, this is the greatest thing ever. And then like 2 years later, I'm like, man, I was, what was I thinking? Like, this is bad.
I mean, we get, obviously, Spider-Man is a big aspect of like people's lives. I mean, it's generally it's one of the first heroes that people hear about. But like some of the new series that start now, like such as Miss Marvel or the new Black Widow series or the new Magneto series, which I know you're a big fan of.
Mm-hmm.
The ones I love. I mean, Joel told you as well. I love I love Captain Marvel. She's one of my favorite heroes.
Oh, yeah.
She's always been one of my favorite heroes. And reading her new series, I mean, I caught up on the. I mean, I've got the trade of the 2013 run up to now. And some of those issues are really, really good. I mean, you could deal with real hard emotions. I mean, the first issue of the new Marvel now is her actually being told by Captain America and Spider-Man being saying, yeah, take the name of Captain Marvel. She's like, no, like, it's disrespectful. Like, I shouldn't take it because that guy's dead. I mean, he's dead in space and I shouldn't disrespect his memory. And then you get this one beautiful page when she like basically flies into space and then basically comes back down, like flying straight down. She says, damn, and she basically says, damn right I'm taking the name, and she embraces that name, and the amount of emotion that you feel throughout the series. I mean, artwork's a bit questionable in some issues, but like, it can continue to get better. You're loving Miss Marvel as much as I mean, Miss Marvel is one of those series that are experimental but so successful at the same time, isn't it?
Oh, I completely agree. I mean, I think it's what it needs to be. I mean, you know, that's what they really relegate these smaller characters that aren't as big. I mean, you know, when you pick up a Batman or a Superman, it's by the books.
Yeah.
This is what sells. This is what we do. Every month we have like 10 issues with these characters. And
it works, stick with it.
Right, rinse, repeat. Where the smaller comics, such as Miss Marvel, Captain Marvel, you know, the new Iron Patriot, the new Punisher, they can take more of a risk and do something different, which is what I'm always looking for. So... yeah, I absolutely love it. I mean, if I could go out of my norm to read these type of books, I generally try to.
I think that's what is missing in the bigger issues. There's no sense of feeling in there. Like, you see, you get the big issues like Superior is very good for a different reason. But then you get other series which is like, it's just kind of more of the same, and then you get more experimental series, which is like...
I'm glad you brought that up because, you know, I'm a huge Captain America fan. You know, and a lot of people always get confused because I wasn't born in this country, I wasn't raised in this country, or any, you know, I grew up here as a teenager, but like, you know, so I love Captain America, and I'm reading that comic, and every month it's same old, it's nonsense story, it's kind of just there, like it's forgettable. Literally, once you close the last page, you look at the cover, you're like, what is this again? Like, it's just not memorable, and I'm like, well, someone will write something good Captain America one day again, but until then,